Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, people on YouTube. And welcome back to William in Japan. Today you join me on the beautiful Ducati 748R. My apologies for obvious reasons, lack of gear. I am on my way to work, so it's kind of hard to have a riding jacket in the office. So again, my apologies. But enough about me today. It is all about your questions. So without further ado, let's get into them. Alright, first question. Daisuke Hoshino 202 asks, do you prefer riding in a group and going solo? Well, that is definitely going solo. So first of all, sorry, it's a long question, so I have to break these down. So a long string of questions to be exact. So okay, solo or group? I do ride in groups, just to be upfront, but I definitely prefer riding solo. For obvious reasons, riding solo, it's always your own pace, it's always where you want to go, and you can stop whenever you like, you can make a detour whenever you like, and you can slow down or speed up depending on your situation, depending on your liking. So lots more freedom compared with, well, let's say you have a group of 5 or even a group of 20, which the more people, the more complicated it gets. Okay, then the second part of his or her question, Daisuke, so I expect it is a him. So the next part of his question is, what do you think of the bike culture in Japan? Well, let me split it down two ways. First of all, the old Japan bike culture. So let's say around the Showa era in the 1980s, at late Showa eras, if I put that way, the biker gang, the Bosozoku or Rolling-zoku, lots of names, so depending on what they are doing, it's definitely more of a rebel kind of feeling, a bit like what we have or what they have in the States. Outlaws, kind of a rebel connection with riding a motorcycle. As a whole, I don't like that. There are still Bosozoku, or to put it in modern terms, Kyusha Dokokai, so people who likes old bikes. Most people now follow the law, they're not as a nuisance, but changing their bikes into the Bosozoku custom is really just not my thing. It's loud, it's a nuisance, and they're real Bosozoku, they ride like idiots. Sorry for my language, but I definitely prefer staying away from them. The second part of Japan's bike culture, the modern one, the ones especially during COVID, a lot of young people start getting their licenses, starting to learn to ride bikes. It's great, I have to say. As a whole, Japan, the motorcyclist culture is better, in my opinion. Way more laid back, really little like balls to the walls, street racing kind of feeling when you're riding sport bikes. It's more chill, more mannered, more civilized, if I can put it that way. I'm not sure if this is the right word, but more consideration to other road users. So yeah, I definitely like the modern culture in Japan. Okay, third part of his question, what would you miss about it if you had to leave the country? Well, as I just mentioned, the culture here is definitely way more easier and more considerate to other people. So even drivers, almost every time I head to a twisty road, local drivers, as long as they live around the area and know there are a lot of motorcyclists, they let you go in front. So I love it that way. People respect each other and you get to enjoy the road all together. So that was definitely something I will miss. Okay, do you prefer riding urban or in the mountains? Well, I don't think anybody likes riding in urban areas, right? For me, myself, riding in an urban area is a must, like we are doing right now. I do commute on a motorcycle. Usually, Japanese people do them on trains. This is definitely the case in Tokyo, but I hate how crowded it is. So I definitely prefer, at my own risk of course, ride a motorcycle to work. You may ask why you don't drive. It's because parking areas are scarce and expensive. It's definitely out of my own pocket. I will not be doing that. So I definitely prefer the mountains. Enjoy the curvy roads, the sweeping lines. Yeah, and much less stop and go like what I am doing now. Right, fifth part of Daisuke's question is, where are my favorite destinations? Well, definitely I do prefer going to Izu, as you guys know. On the east side, there's the Izu skyline, a toll road, which is very famous for tourists. I prefer the west side, so the Doitoge, West Izu skyline. Those places are sparsely populated, very little tourists, and perfect, like I mean perfect roads to ride. And there's barely any traffic jam. So yeah, that is definitely where I love to go. All right, are you into cars as well? No, I do like cars. I would like to drive a V8 someday. But as for now, motorcycles are enough. What's your ideal N equals ideal number of bikes to own? Okay, let me think about it. I want a commuter bike for sure. I want a touring bike for sure that can go 2 up. I want a sporty bike, of course, as a weekend warrior. What else do I need? I think that's all I need so far. I only have one butt. So yeah, 3 bikes. That was what I have in mind. Okay, those were Daisuke's. Moving swiftly to the next one. Alright, next is Andika Andrianto 2803. Hopefully I did not butcher your name. So I have so many questions. I hope you don't mind. Of course I don't mind. I wonder if there are any restrictions of engine CC requirements for a motorcycle to be allowed on a highway. Yes, in the US you said it's 125, which is completely the same here as well. You need to have over 125 cc's in order to head onto the highway. You can have a pillion when you're over 50 cc's, but in order to go on a highway you need to be at least 125. Right, and the next part is, I want to ask if we can do modifications and the police will stop you or not. Oh, that's embarrassing. Might be in the wrong gear, but oh well. So, okay, modifications. This is a big subject. For straight pipes, loud pipes, frankly speaking, you won't be stopped by the police because they don't have the right equipment to indict you on the spot. In Japan, you need to be proven that you broke the law in the first place in order to get a ticket. So usually, like when you're riding right now, just like I am doing, nothing will happen. However, sometimes during they call the week of traffic safety, or during Golden Week, which has just passed, there will be traps, not speed traps, but traps on the highway around the toll gates to stop every single motorcyclist to check their sound level, check their dBs. In those traps, there will be technicians, not police, technicians that work with them and check, and if you don't pass the sound level, you will be fined. And sometimes you won't be allowed to continue riding. As a whole, Japan has a inspection law, inspection regulations. For new bikes, that's 3 years. For old bikes, it's 2 years. Every 2 years, basically, you need to go in to have your bike checked. And if you alter the color, if you alter how many people can sit on your bike, let's say you put on a unremovable seat cowl, or you remove the foot pegs, or even you change mirrors that became higher, wider. Everything needs to go on paper. So modification as a whole is a bit of a pain in the ass, but if you do it right, it's fine. The biggest problem with having a, let's say, a non-regulated pipe or a race pipe is definitely not the police, but your dealer. It's not just your, let's say, a official dealer. Even with those larger chain used bike dealerships, they refuse to service your bike if you don't have a regulated pipe. So that's one of the biggest issues when you ride or modify your bike over here. Same with bore-up kits. Most dealerships refuse to work on them. But if you can find independent shops ran by their own owners, sometimes they'll work on it, but you definitely will have a hard time looking for shops in the first place. So regarding bore-up kits, the outer pipes, it's definitely harder compared to the States, especially if your bike is over 250 cc's. Under that, because there is no JCI, no Japanese compulsory inspection, I think, you can modify your bike way more freely. Feel free to add wider mirrors or even bar mirrors in the first place. Feel free to change the color, feel free to do modifications, because you don't need to go in for an inspection every 2 years. Alright, final part of Andrianka's question is how to get a Japanese license. Okay, it's actually pretty straightforward. If you're here as a tourist, feel free to get an international license. It will work. However, if you're coming here as a long-term resident, you will need to have a local license. Say you mentioned United States, so that assume that's where you're from. You have to have a motorcycle license, which I believe in the States is very easy. But after getting that license, you have to prove you have been riding or at least living in the United States for at least 6 months. If you don't have that, you cannot get a Japanese license directly. So if you want to get a license here without your own home country license, is exactly what I did as well. I got my driver's license for my car first, so I went through a school, which is actually pretty hard. You have to take long courses. I think it's around 20 hours. Sorry, this is on top of my head. It may be wrong. I'll put out the links, at least the correct numbers on the screen right now. So I think it's 20 hours of classrooms, and then you have to take courses for another 8 hours or 10 hours inside the school, and then another 10 or 6. Again, please look at the screen right now for the correct numbers. So after that, you can finally take the test, which is composed of written and technical, so you have to drive a car to get them. If you already have a Japanese driver's license, or the other way around, you already have a motorcycle license, you can skip the classroom part, and you can also skip the test part when you actually go take the test. For motorcycles, I first got a driver, as I mentioned, so I skipped the classrooms. I went directly for another 6 to 8 hours inside the school. You don't need to go out for motorcycles, so you only have to stay in the school course. But to tell you, to be frank, it's pretty hard for a newbie. There are S-cranks, there are hill stops, hill starts. Well, actually very, very good practice for you to actually ride in the wild, but in order to pass the test, you cannot even slide back. So pretty strict. There's also a bridge that you have to cross, very narrow bridge. And let me think, what else is there? I'll just put it on the screen again. So all these tests you have to pass. For smaller bikes, they're a little bit less. For full motorcycle licenses, these are all the test subjects. So yeah, after you took that in the school, you practice and then you take the test and you are good to go. All right, that's all from Andika. Sorry, I think I mispronounced your name again, but thanks for asking. All right, moving on swiftly. Next is from Danchan sama? Danchan. Oh, okay, Danchan. So from Danchan, can I ask 2 questions? Of course, go ahead. How can you claim to be Canadian? Well, I don't need to claim because I am Canadian. So, a bit of background information. As mentioned, I am Canadian full and full. I am an immigrant. However, I moved back to Asia when I was a little kid. So, technically, I was, or I still is, always Canadian, but lived most of my life in Asia. So 14 years in Japan, another 14 in Taiwan. So yeah, most of my life is in Asia, and that's hence how come my accent is pretty weird. I did learn English as a kid. It kind of stuck with me, but advanced vocabulary is all through movies, YouTube, and I like to read a lot. So I did read quite a lot of novels. So that's how I continued to pick up my English. You don't sound like any Canadians that I know. Yeah, because I never lived that long in Canada. And your Japanese sounds like you are from Osaka. Oh, good catch there. So as I mentioned, I lived in Japan for 14 years now, but I am always in Tokyo. However, my undergraduate studies was in English, so don't really have the chance to practice Japanese that thorough. Yes, I did take courses. Yes, I did pass N1, the Nihongo proficiency test, the Japanese proficiency test, level 1. So I did pass that before I got a job. But as a whole, my Japanese was not strictly formal, if you can put it that way. After I started working, my tutor, or my mentor, was from Amagasaki, and that's where my kind of weird Japanese accent came from. My mentor was really nice. She taught me how to speak proper Japanese, proper business Japanese, and a lot of my slang, a lot of my pronunciations, and a lot of my intonations, if I can put it that way, are picked up from her. So that's why I kind of got this Kansai dialect. It's because I spent a lot of my time in my early years as a business person around my mentor, who she was from Amagasaki. So that's the reason why my Japanese sound like I am from Osaka. So early on, next question is, you mentioned that your street triple quick shifter was inconsistent and sometimes works fine. And that is still the case. Believe it or not, it got worse. My quick shifter and my other videos, I think I kind of mentioned it, stopped working. It comes back again, stopped working again. So this is really inconsistent on and off thing. Did complain this to my distributor. They did have a look, couldn't find anything, but luckily it was replaced under warranty. Very lately actually, just got it replaced, and hopefully, fingers crossed here, it will stick that way. I won't need to go back and fix this problem again. All right, guys, I think that's all the questions from Danchan. And we're at the Tokyo Tower again, which means the end of my commute. Well, close to the end of my commute. So folks, thanks for your questions. Hopefully I got them all answered. And please do look forward to the 1,000 subscriber AMA. This has been William. Thanks for joining me, and see you next time. Bye-bye.